Welcome to a new episode of SmarTalk TV. Today is a special episode as we have two guests, double the fun. On my left, Rania AlBanna. Welcome.
Thank you.
And on my right, Zina Bdeir Dajani. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Rania and Zina, you're both from Antwork.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here to discuss a bit, to know more about Antwork and discuss also your experience with startups and how all this is going. Mm-hmm. Let's start discussing a bit about what's Antwork. Who wants to take a shot at it?
In 3 words, it's about space, community, and technology. And it started from a need, from a specific need that Zina and her team had 2 years ago.
Exactly. Antwork started as based on the concept of sharing. Basically, I come from a real estate background and I worked with in residential mostly. But meanwhile, I was witnessing a lot of startups and entrepreneurs starting businesses related to my husband's work, who's in technology. And I realized that their main pain point has been setting up their space and their environment and their team as much as their administrative capabilities to be able to launch a business. So I moved out of my main business in real estate and started helping set up shared infrastructure and shared services to help these businesses actually focus on what they do best. And from that need, I realized that this is something that everybody has a pain point with, suffering from. And in the environment of Lebanon, where there has been a lot of support on the funding of new businesses, there hasn't been as much in helping them set up and be ready to face really bigger challenges. So
if I go to Antwork, what do I get? Okay, I'm a startup. I go knock on Antwork's door, at Antwork's door.
As a first step, you get an environment in the middle of the city, very strategically located, that gives you a green, open, green space. It's in Spears,
because
Hamra.
it's in a good location, but you
close.
don't get the traffic.
Yeah, no, it's pretty well located, definitely.
Yeah. And it provides 1,500 square meters of open space, of green space. And that's very rare in Beirut. A space that you can actually use and that's fully connected and that allows you to be in the middle of a working environment, but yet at your freedom.
And if I may add something, mixing old-style Lebanese house with modernity, and that's beautiful in itself.
Yep. So yes, so also the renovation of the 2 existing buildings, one of which is in the 50s building. It used to be the building of Amn al-Am. And the El Sir building, known as El Sir because it was one of the big companies back then. And keeping them as much as possible as they are. I mean, their character remains, but they've been upgraded to become healthy fully functional working environments. That gives it some character, some charm.
What services do we get? I'm a startup, I come in, what do I get? I mean, besides the environment, what's...
First, you get not just the environment, you get the flexibility to work any which way you like, and for the duration that you need.
So no specific minimum period?
No minimum period. It can be an hour, and it can be a year. So you choose.
Wow.
So flexibility is the number 1 selling point, I think, for all startups, because they want that. They want to know that they're not bound to something and they're not putting up any money up front.
It's a critical aspect for entrepreneurs.
Yes. They do have some support services, IT services, accounting services, the basics that they would need so that they could be focused on their value proposition.
So as a startup, besides the space that I can rent anytime, I have access to accountants? At discounted rates?
Yes, to administrative services that are provided on a shared basis. Okay. So yes, they are discounted because it's one team providing that same support to different companies in the size and type of service that a startup needs.
Okay.
And
now the startups themselves can exchange services, which is where the community factor comes in. You step into a community and each one has a different expertise and a different type of service to either sell or exchange with their peers. So this is where the real service exchange comes in, is where not just the admin is being supported by Antwork itself. A designer can be selling her services to a company that needs it, or a copywriter, or any
How do you encourage this? How do you encourage this, this get
You know,
together?
what Antwork stands for primarily is the platform. It's the app that actually runs the community, the space, and that type of exchange. So when you step in, first and foremost, your access to the space and to the services is at your fingertip. And it's on a pay-as-you-go. So you have your account, you have your wallet, you have your own credentials, and you know what's going on, you know what events are going on through your app.
You're connected.
So you're connected. And by being connected, you just know who's there, who's available, and what can they provide you as a service or as expertise, even for advice.
So I go on my app.
You can search. You can search for what you're looking for. You can search for advice. You can search for a mentor. You can search for a legal consultant.
Or a room. Or
So I can book my room through that app. I can
Definitely.
find a mentor.
Absolutely.
I can book my parking through that.
Exactly.
You can book
You have
your
access to
parking.
parking?
You can rent furniture for extra furniture for your office.
Okay.
You can spend your whole day doing these small tasks or small transactions without even talking to anyone because you can do them yourself. But then again, we focus a lot on the interaction on the ground because we have different spaces and different environments for work. People tend to socialize in some, socialize less in others because it's a quieter area. Have a coffee, have a chat over a glass of water. So you have so many different experiential moments during your day.
I find it amazing today that the entrepreneurial ecosystem is highly based around coffee places.
Oh yes, coffee is a major element.
It's one of the key offerings. You can't have a co-working space without any coffee. They're looking for coffee. They're looking for snacks, and food is an added value. And it gives people an excuse to actually exchange information and get to know one another. And that's why they're actually joining a community. They're looking for opportunities.
The networking part, I guess, is very important.
It's very important. It's also supported through Antworking Day, which is kind of a demo day, but it's also a day for members to show each other what they do and how they can help each other. So they have a full day of exhibiting their work, but also inviting their clients and guests and funds to join that space and learn about others.
How many tenants do you have? I don't know if you call them tenants. I mean, if some come for an hour, members.
Members, residents, or members,
walk-ins, co-workers who...
How many people per year?
Per year?
Per month?
Per month, around 400.
Okay, it's a lot.
On a daily basis, around 400,
Yeah, I mean, in and out.
Yeah,
it's
in
the
and
same.
out, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. When you say we're for startups, so larger companies, more established companies do not come to Antwerp?
They're welcome as well. Any company can, because it's flexible, you can choose to stay and take an entire floor rather than taking the office.
So the
that
space
fits
is completely extensible.
It's extensible, and you can shrink and grow. So that makes it actually more desirable for the startup and the small to medium-sized companies, because those are growing companies and they need that flexibility in space.
Now, Antwork, you presented it very well, what it is. But in fact, I mean, you guys are yourself a startup.
Yes.
I mean,
we are.
It's created from scratch. It's built. You have clients. You have suppliers. I mean, you need to execute it.
We've built the team. We've built the operation from scratch. Yes.
Initially, how do you go from? Because it's a huge project. How do you go from that idea you were talking about saying, I want to build, we need to build that space, that community where people come in, up to actually having it? Because it's
you
huge.
learn from the community. Actually, it's a learning process on the ground, and you learn from the members themselves. You learn about their needs. You learn about the frequency of their needs.
Yeah, but how did it start? Initially, how do you go say, okay, this is the idea. How do you go execute it? You sit down on a paper. You say, I need the land. How am I going to get all this?
Remember, I told you I come from a real estate background, so my pain point back then was that real estate is actually a very hard business to keep up with the growing needs of today's generation, today's workforce. And the reason for that is that real estate is very rigid and very heavy as an investment, as a commitment. People used to pay, to commit to 3-year rents with penalties and with long-term commitments
And charges.
although they needed to start a business and with no idea if it's gonna fly or not. So I came from the background of someone who was suffering from that becoming not going
problem
as fast as the whole world is growing. And the main point of Antwork was actually to look for a solution to turn real estate into a service, affordable, accessible, but also scalable kind of service. That's where technology comes in. That's why the platform and the app are our core business.
How do you grow as a company? Besides your land in Spears,
Yes,
we
that
enable
space.
other spaces. Any
Okay.
workspace or any space that desires to be a shared, to give the offering of a shared workspace.
Okay.
We enable them with the technology, with the operating model that we've developed. Also through the community that we've built, the partnerships that we've made, and the programs that we're always nurturing.
What do you
and
mean
growing.
by programs?
Well, a community needs activations, and it needs the element of knowledge sharing and learning. And they need to know that they're gaining value not just through making connections themselves, but by learning something new. Maybe connecting with a fund or connecting with an accelerator program, attending a workshop. All of these things not only give them the excuse to network and meet one another, but they're also allowing them to
Stay up to date,
enhance their skills, a variety of opportunities.
I just want to add something. Today's entrepreneurs have come from schools or universities or programs that they've studied years back. And today's technology is requiring new skills. So the constant learning and growing of leadership programs and workshops for specific professional skills is important to keep them up to date and to keep their businesses at growing at the right pace. Otherwise, what they've learned 3, 4, 5 years ago doesn't qualify anymore. When you talk about digital marketing today, it's not the same as it used to be a few years back. So to be able to be cutting edge and really on top of your game, you really need to be advancing on a daily basis, on a monthly basis with technology and with the new educational learnings that exist out there. So that's what a co-working space provides as well, as much as other people to learn from, but also anyone with skills or professional backgrounds can contribute to make everyone benefit from what he knows or what he can provide.
How many other spaces are you managing?
So you were
today,
talking
powering
about
up?
the growth plan. As we said, Beirut, Spears specifically is our pilot. When we built Spears and we built the operation and we started creating even the brand name and our existence, we learned a lot from it to develop the application and the technology that runs it and drives it. And today we have a fully developed app that has still a long way to go because we're constantly learning. And that pilot is fully operational. And today we're ready to actually open up several spaces at the same time and maybe one after the other, but in a very short time, because the technology allows us to do so seamlessly. And today we have in the pipeline around 6 or 7 locations that will be coming up very soon, and you'll be hearing about them one after the other, although they've been,
brewing in the background
in the past few months.
Yeah.
But it's coming soon.
Well, on that matter, is the co-working space in Lebanon, if I can say it this way, is it? I mean, we're seeing everywhere co-working spaces popping up. Mm-hmm. Universities now all have their co-working spaces. Mm-hmm. On the highway to Jounieh, there's a big one. Here at Essaouira, there's one. I mean, almost everywhere. Are we building too many co-working spaces in Lebanon?
We may be, but what we're doing is not necessarily co-working spaces. We're building a co-working culture, which is about the shared workspace. It's about the community aspect. It's about integrating with a community of like-minded people. So it's more the culture that we're building, and we're enabling shared workspaces. They could be office spaces. That doesn't necessarily have to have a co-working element, as long as you have the space for the members in that community to convene and meet and casually, sit around in a place. Doesn't have to be a co-working table.
It's funny listening to both of you. I get two perspectives of what Antwork is.
Really?
I hear Antwork, the technology company. Antwork, the tech company, and Antwork, the service company. What is Antwork?
She's saying a lot about technology. I don't want to be.
You're handling this. What's your role in Antwork, actually, on a day-to-day basis? Tell me about your day-to-day life at Antwork.
It's a little bit scary.
Everything.
Everything, yes. The technology, the operation, the community, the programs, putting together a lot of the partnerships, the growth strategy,
No, but actually, it's a
powered
serious
by
question.
model.
Are you guys? Do you see yourself? I mean, again, as Antwork, as a company, as a startup itself, or call it SME, do you see yourself as really? I'm exaggerating, but it's just to ask the question: as an app provider, as a solution provider, as a software, as a SaaS company, or do you see yourself more as literally operating spaces in a sense of real estate?
We are an enabler. That's why we use technology to do that. But you need also external tools to the technology to make the technology relevant and work for you.
Yep.
So every space has a different requirement or a different purpose.
Need.
But any space can join the co-working movement by just plugging into a platform that can enable it. So that's where we come in.
Some spaces only do need the technology. So sometimes it makes sense for a space to plug into the app, the technology alone, without the other aspects that we're saying, an operating model in a community and our network, because it makes sense for them to automate, give access, give flexibility to their spaces. And through the app, they're also accessing a community, giving access to their own community for the larger Antwork community and vice versa. So in some cases, when we say we're growing to other workspaces or growing through the powered by model, we may be growing through just technology. And in other cases, depending on the space and what that community needs, then maybe we are also operating that space. Maybe we are bringing in programs that we already are partnering with in different locations or different spaces that apply in that specific space.
If I take that aspect of the business, the service side, I mean, you obviously have a very privileged perspective on looking at what entrepreneurs need and want, because you're providing them the services at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What do you think today, I mean, beyond just a co-working space, what do you think today entrepreneurs, at least in Lebanon, really need? What do you feel sitting with all that many entrepreneurs, 400 coming in basically on a daily basis? What do you think is, the pain they're really suffering
They
with?
need funding. Most
dollars,
of them
money.
need dollars. They need funding, and they need guidance in raising funds as well.
Yes, I would say that, but that's already being kind of taken care of by several programs, incubators, accelerators, who are providing the environment for mentorship and a preparation of a certain idea to become, monetizable or fundable. What they need as well is to be able to operate or to run that process from A to Z without having to worry about the things that stand in the way and that make everything harder in Lebanon. I have to say, as an entrepreneur, one of the main pain points that I've lived on a daily basis is that everything that you can actually get in support anywhere in the world, you have to do double the effort to get it in Lebanon. not because it's not available, but because either it needs a special permit, a special approval, an authority that has to be involved to help you through it, or you need to know the right people. It's always, even to get funding, I mean, there are many funds, but if you know someone who knows someone, it's easier to get them to hear your voice before somebody else. It's just...
What's the number one request you get from entrepreneurs, from your tenants, from your community? What's number one
They
request?
want everything for free.
They want it all for free.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
But because they're lacking funds and they're lacking,
difficult.
It's difficult. And the infrastructure, as she said.
The subsidy, here what's lacking is the subsidy. And in the beginning, when someone is starting a business, he's not yet fundable. It's not that when he doesn't have the chance to get funding. But in the early stages, he's not yet ready to present an idea that's convincing. But he needs to be subsidized in a way to be able to get to the point where he can present what he's about. So that phase is not yet, there's no support enough for someone to go through this,
that initial
launch phase.
That launch phase, yeah, I mean...
And he has to rely on his personal funds, on his parents, or on his...
For now, the
friends and
ISME
family.
Grant is
The grant was actually a very good
now,
answer to that, exactly. So now it's less available. So, this is why they come to us and tell us, can we have a few months free? And then when we get to a certain milestone, then we would be able to pay. And we try to do that, but we are not subsidized ourselves.
No,
so if we were...
you need to make a profit.
Exactly,
yes,
but
why we do try. We do try to give offerings as much as we can. You have to support them. And at the end of the day, if you're going to nurture a community, you have to give something back.
Out of curiosity, are co-working spaces or enablers eligible for 331 funding?
Not as co-working spaces
Not
per
strictly.
se. Although I think they should be because they're very much part of the ecosystem. But basically, the way we are positioned, we're a startup ourselves, and we are developing a technology, and we're developing a network, and it's a scalable business. And our plan is to start in Lebanon and grow beyond Lebanon by creating a network.
We are raising funds.
We are raising funds. It's constant. I mean, since we started, and it's continuous. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is not to subsidize the operation, but to grow the business beyond that operation. And that operation can be self-sustainable. Well. That's not the issue. It can be, you can get some subsidies for some programs, some events to help, the members. But as a startup, it requires funds to grow beyond what it is today. And that's the whole intention.
As a startup yourself, how do you get your recurrent clients? How do you keep them coming back at Antwork and spending at Antwork?
Experience.
Yeah, and the community.
Comfort.
I go back to that. The comfort.
Comfort. And people want to come to work when they come to a campus that's fully occupied, busy, happy.
They've created a life for themselves, Yani. It has a life of its own.
How do you offer the best customer service possible? I mean, again, this is, part of the SmarTalk TV is really get lessons learned for other entrepreneurs. How do you make sure, because I know you're providing a very good service, how do you make sure you always provide?
Seamlessly.
Well, through listening to their complaints on a daily basis and tweaking as you go along.
And ideas. Some of them have great ideas.
Some of them have fantastic ideas, but you're constantly enhancing your service by listening to the feedback, by living their experience. Sometimes you want to go down there and work from the co-working space or sit in a meeting room and experience the environment yourself and constantly be rethinking how you're giving that service and how you could be doing it better. So it doesn't end.
A lot of startups tend to forget to listen to their customers. It's true that this is a key criteria.
We are our own customers as well. Our team members are our customers. Each one of them has feedback that they provide once a week at least about the seating, the lighting, the music. Why not have this? Come up with certain ideas, because they, as workers, as independent workers, as employees who come to work every day, they want to feel happy being in this environment and comfortable and productive.
In Antwork, in Spears at least, you have a FabLab. Now, is it affiliated to Antwork or it's a different company?
It's partner of
It's a
Antwork.
sister company.
It's a sister company.
We have a common shareholder.
Okay. How do you view, I don't know if you have the answer, but how do you view, is there demand for FabLabs in Lebanon? How do you feel that, that interaction?
I say not enough yet. I see some startups, especially startups building their own hardware or prototyping some sort of product. They do have the interest, and I don't think all of them have the skill to use the machinery in the Fab Lab. So it's a better idea as a Fab Lab that anybody can come and use, but it ends up being more so access that turns into a service. So you start with access, you start tinkering with the product, but at the end of the day, you need someone to help you build it.
You need expertise.
You need expertise. Now the Fab Lab they do have both of those. So you can start building your own and then get expertise and advice from them and get them involved on finalizing your product. That exists, but I don't see as much demand as I had imagined yet.
It's extremely difficult to do hardware in Lebanon, I guess.
Yeah. It's costly. At the end of the day, you're investing in a machine or in a product that you're not sure will end up being the right one. And if you're not funded for that, which is not yet very common, it's hard to just tinker and try things out because you're doing it out of your.
But do you see your people at Antwork? These startups try and go try stuff. Do you get that sense of curiosity around FabLabs?
There are two types of entrepreneurs: the types who actually like to do things themselves with their own hands, and some of them would rather commission somebody else to do it. So from that first type, you get maybe a certain percentage that would do it, would really go for it. So the numbers are not very, very big.
And they're still quite possessive of whatever they're building. So doing it within their own walls is safer still. The mentality is still that when you're talking about hardware or an actual product, it's less that of a sharing mentality than the co-worker who's thinking about a new entrepreneurial idea. When
we talk about hardware, if you look at the software side, finding developers in Lebanon is becoming more and more of a challenge.
Very difficult.
From what I see from my own line of work.
Very hard.
So you're feeling it also with
yes,
people.
Definitely.
How are they? I mean, you're seeing so many startups. This is again the macro view. You're getting so many people. You can view what they're doing. Mm-hmm. How are they handling this? What's your advice to entrepreneurs out there in terms of going and getting developers? I don't know if yourself are facing this in your own business.
Yes,
we encourage new companies to always start with shared resources. So there are a few companies, one of which is based at Antwork, that provides development services.
Okay.
On a need basis. So some new companies might actually use these services to pick up, to come up or shape the idea they're looking. And with time, they would hire their own team. So they can't start, overnight, they can just commit and start without having to recruit and go through the process of trying someone new. And by the time they get to, let's say, a beta version, they would have time to figure out who can join their team. But it has become very hard, and I know that there has been a few initiatives to develop the skills of developers to become employable through several programs, and these are growing. Even there's a very important point. We're actually we have based in Antwerp a school for students for school students, younger generation, 5 to 17-year-olds who are learning programming and coding very early on. I don't know if you're aware of Geek Express. And that has become a need. Even school students are coming every day, every afternoon to attend classes because by the time they're at university, they already know how to handle themselves, programming and coding. They don't need to hire a developer to start an idea. So this new generation is much more equipped to handle itself by itself.
I'm planning on sending my kids there this summer. So
You should.
It's something that has become, a requirement. You can't have a kid at 17 not knowing how to code. It's kind of.
But I mean, you were saying it's a growing. Do you feel the appeal for this? Do you think parents are starting
Definitely.
Yes, it's a new
Children
language.
themselves, forget the parents. The children are interested in this. The children are hearing about it. They're maybe experiencing it with friends, maybe seeing others build a small robot or
And there are so many tools
code their
online.
own little toy.
And there are so many tools online and applications that give you small bits and pieces of ways to do things that you really feel the need to learn the whole thing and make it happen from A to Z. So it's becoming curiosity more than anything else.
If you had to try again, to do Antwork again, how would you do it differently? What would you do differently?
Honestly,
I don't see any other way. We just
I don't
foraged
think I would change
through.
anything.
It was just
We
don't
would-
look back and keep running.
Yeah, we don't have time to look back. That's, I think, the
And
real
there was
issue.
no other way to do it.
No, I think that I would do things the way we did in the beginning, but I would be more wary about the expectations, or when you plan something and you think it would happen in 2 months and then takes more, that kind of gets you off plan. That I would plan differently, but otherwise,
So you would have expected differently, but you would have done the same.
yes.
Rania, close your ears. Antwerp in 10 years, where is it?
In Lebanon, Europe, and the Middle East, at least 120 locations actually, fully connected.
Ditto, that's the plan.
You put that as a real plan.
I can't have a different answer.
You all agree on that plan.
Yeah, we're very aligned.
So, and when are you planning your international growth? When do you foresee it?
2019.
Pretty soon.
Yeah,
Inshallah.
we're working on it.
Rania, Zina, I want to thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
It was a very
Thanks.
interesting talk.
Thank you, Jihad.
You're contributing to removing some pain from the startups.
We hope so. Yeah.
We're trying.
Startups journey. It's a tough enough journey, so anything that helps.
We
is
really
good.
believe the ecosystem in Lebanon has a lot to offer, and it has a few gaps that need to be just nurtured and accommodated for, and it can go very far.
There's a lot of
So,
potential.
We're
You
working
feel
on
that potential, and
Yeah,
There is potential, yeah. You just need to nurture it, and you need
give it the right environment.
the right environment.
To grow,
blossom.
to blossom.
On these poetic words on entrepreneurship, we will end here.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.